Hi, Brent Haynes with Wood Sound Flutes. Want to give you a sneak behind the scenes of the latest Flute of the Month. It's called Gratitude, Walking a Tightrope. The flute is made out of Brazilian rosewood. The totem of the flute is going to be two hands in the act of catching. And the design on the flute, it'll have silver wire inlay and not 100% certain on end caps and the rest of the design yet, but it's going to have some silver wire inlay that will depict in some way the grasping of two hands together, as in, you know, one person helping another in this kind of fashion, or somebody catching somebody as they're falling, that kind of idea. Walking the tightrope, this whole flute has come together over the last month and a half or so now, and still haven't finished the designing of it yet. But it started out when I actually found the wood. The wood itself is, as I said, Brazilian rosewood. It came from a reclaimed beam, a beam that came out of perhaps a church or some other building. It was built at least over 100 years ago, 150 years ago, and has been in that building ever since. And it could be even older than that. The Brazilian rosewood has been illegal to export from Brazil since 1967. The reason for that is that the wood has been harvested to such a huge extent to create fine furniture and exported to Europe and so on for fine furniture. And one of the nicknames of the Brazilian rosewood is piano wood. The rosewood they make pianos out of was Brazilian rosewood. I would love to hear one of those instruments. It's got to be absolutely spectacular sounding. It was used on all of the pre-war Martin guitars. Were all back and sides, were all Brazilian rosewood. Just a sweet, gorgeous sounding wood with incredible projection. And so we got it from this reclaimed beam. The beam was, the gentleman I bought the beam from, he is from Brazil, and he bought a container full of reclaimed lumber. He had no idea what was in the container, and it could have been pine, it could have been some common wood down there, but when he got it here, he found in it a couple of beams of Brazilian rosewood. So exciting, so exciting. So as reclaimed lumber, the wood is legal for in Brazil for them to go ahead and sell and to utilize. And so I'm really grateful that Brazil had the foresight in locking down on the harvesting of that particular wood. Because I just think, man, what an incredible misfortune it would have been had Brazilian rosewood become extinct because of harvesting. That would have just been a tragedy to the world. Instead, the forests are regrowing, and at some point, I suspect, you know, many years down the road, they'll be able to lift the ban on the export of the wood. It'll probably be farmed and things of that nature and made available for people. At any rate, I want to share with you a little bit about how this wood sounds, what it sounds like, and what we're doing with the flute, and where does the name come from, and all that. But when you hold a flute in a particular point, you basically hold it on a node of the frequency that it makes. It will ring. I gotta find it. It's always when I was downstairs doing this in my kitchen, it was so easy for me to find the right spot, and I thought, oh, I'm gonna get on video and I'm gonna have so much trouble getting the right spot, but that's pretty good. And you can hear the ringing and the sustaining when I tap the woods together. This is just one way that you can actually hear a little bit what the wood is going to sound like beforehand. It's a very clean sound. But it has just this beautiful sweetness to it. I think one of these is lower than the other. They're like almost identical in shape, but they're significantly different sound. Yeah, this one's the higher one. If I get off the node just a little bit, you can hear it doesn't ring. I get on the node and it rings. just incredible. A xylophone out of these would be just amazing. What an incredible instrument that would be. I'm excited to be able to make flutes out of it. I've made flutes out of Brazilian rosewood in the past. I have some Brazilian rosewood burl that I actually have 2 pieces of Brazilian rosewood burl that I'll be making into flutes. Those flutes will be expensive. They're going to be around $10,000 for these last 2 pieces of Brazilian rosewood burl that I have. But the Brazilian rosewood will not have that high of a price on it, thank goodness. And so, but it was expensive to get the wood. And so I felt like I was really out on a limb, so to speak, or on a tightrope, so to speak, when in purchasing the wood. It was pretty expensive. And well, it was quite expensive. For wood, it was unbelievable. But I knew that I was never going to see this again, or if I did, it was going to be a very rare time that I would be able to get the Brazilian rosewood again. It's just not available typically. Most of the wood that you'll find in the United States is wood that has come out of somebody's basement or garage. They had stored it for a number of years. We're going to build projects out of it, and they never did. And then descendants are selling the wood. That's where most of the Brazilian rosewood is coming from. And so getting this directly from Brazil out of probably a church that was, you know, at least 100 to 150 years old, to me is really, really special. That's just a beautiful thing to think that this wood has been vibrating for that long to the sounds of praise and for Creator. To me is really beautiful. It was actually Lynn Nicholson that told me that. Lynn Nicholson just passed away last week, but she was a good friend and a client, and I have some wood from the Salt Lake Tabernacle, and she wanted a flute made out of it because she said, Brent, this wood has been vibrating to the singing of the Mormon Tabernacle Choir for the last 160 years. It must be just amazing, and it is amazing wood. But let's talk about the name, Gratitude, Walking a Tightrope. I was out in my shop working on my laser cutter, engraver, that kind of thing. And it can get out of a line, and it's got all sorts of idiosyncrasies. And you always got to baby it along, and it can really cause setbacks in production when it's not working properly. And so I was out there trying to get it to do what I needed it to do. I think I was cutting leather straps or something. And I just couldn't get it to cut properly. It was shooting 2 beams out instead of 1. And I know what causes that, but I still was not able to fix it, even though I was doing the things that normally fix that problem. I'd gotten really, I let it get under my skin, and I'd gotten pretty upset about it. I put on the music of the soundtrack from The Greatest Showman. I love that show, and I love the soundtrack. And when the song Tightrope came on, it reminded me of my wife and her willingness and desire to be with me and to walk this tightrope of life that we're on. As you know, she originally thought I was going to be a chemical engineer and out working, climbing corporate ladder or something of that nature. So for her now to be in support of me as we're making flutes is really very remarkable to me. And I'm very grateful to her for her willingness to strive to with me to make this work and to be able to provide the instruments that we provide. It's just, I feel very blessed to be able to do it. Anyway, as I was working on the laser, listening to this song, feeling the feelings that I was having from the song Tightrope, my eyes were filled with tears. I really couldn't see what I was doing on the laser, but I was really into the song. I was singing it at the top of my lungs, totally out of key and everything. And then the song ended, and I went and tried the laser, and it was so crisp and so clean. Like, I don't think it ever has been as crisp and clean as it was then. It worked so well, perfectly. And I marveled at that, and immediately in my mind, the name of this next Flute of the Month came to my mind. And actually what came to my mind was Walking a Tightrope - Gratitude. And I've switched that the other way around because the important thing is the gratitude. The gratitude to those that help us walk this tightrope of life. The gratitude towards those who are there to catch us if we should fall, and to help us to stand back up, because we certainly will fall. It's just a question of when, and to be able to help us from those falls. The falls are where we learn so much and we grow so much from those times. And the feeling of gratitude, I truly feel that is what fixed my laser. When I had the feeling of gratitude in my heart, the laser worked perfect. I was able to do what I needed it to do. And you can call it, just a better state of mind. You can call it lots of different things. Me personally, I feel like I had the Spirit working for me to help me do the job that I had in front of me. And so instead of just being alone at it, I wasn't alone. I had additional help. So I still didn't know what the totem was going to be. I got the wood. It's going to be Brazilian rosewood. I got the name, gratitude, walking a tightrope, and all sorts of wild ideas came to mind. Ideas like, maybe a tightrope running down the flute, which is totally not at all what I want. And just all sorts of crazy ideas were coming to mind for what the design of the flute would be. A few weeks later, I've been thinking about this a lot, and I've told this story to, anybody who will sit still and let me tell them, because for me, that's partly how I figure it out, and it's even what I'm doing right now is creating in my mind what it is, the message that I want to communicate with this particular instrument, the story behind it, the purpose, and I was telling this to a friend of mine, Dan Warmbrock. He and his wife Wilda brought up some the Osage orange that we're using for the Sunrise Classic, and they've become very dear friends of ours. And they were so Dan had come to get his wife's flute repaired, something on it I needed to fix, and so he was there to take care of that. And I was telling him about this name, walking tightrope. And I said, I just really would like to be able to communicate to people that, and they can call it whatever they want. Call it Creator, call it God, call it Heavenly Father or Heavenly Mother, call it, or both, or call it the universe, call it the greater human consciousness, whatever. I don't care what a person calls it. I just want them to know that they are loved. And I was doing this as I was telling him this. I was holding my hands out like this. I just want them to know that they are loved. And boom, the totem came to my mind. It's two hands together, as in, being ready to catch someone who is potentially ready to fall, and being there for them, to help them get back on their feet, to help them stand up, to help them to move and grow and walk forward, just like you would a child learning to walk. And it was a really strong experience, much like the one when I first got the name, when we thought of that. Later, my shop manager, Josh, was thinking a lot about this, and he was thinking about his wife, and thinking about how she's been working with him and helping him through their challenges of life. And he says, I feel like my wife is not so much ready to catch me, but rather that we're working hand in hand, and she's actively engaged in helping me through this life, and helping us. We are both actively engaged in helping each other walk this tightrope of life. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's awesome. I love the actively engaged idea of hands together, helping one another through the process. And so on the flute, and I'm not entirely certain what this is all going to look like, but on the flute, we're going to use wire inlay in a design that will represent the idea of walking together hand in hand, or helping one another like this. And I love it because this kind of at the base of those fingers coming together is those U's coming together, like the unity symbol, the Navajo rock art symbol for unity. Just two U's like this and like that coming together is a symbol for unity, and I love that concept of being there for one another. Well, my camera died on me partway through that shoot. What a disappointment. I thought I'd communicated things really well. Regardless of whether you end up being a client and getting one of these flutes of the month, one of these flutes specifically or not, I hope that as you view the flute and listen to it, that it fills you with that sense of love and gratitude, and that I'm able to communicate that through the art to you a little bit. And I'm so grateful to all of you for allowing us, through your purchases of our instruments, allowing us to walk this particular path and to be able to create instruments that are a part of the music that you make, to be able to just strive to make the world just a teeny little bit better, perhaps a little teeny bit more beautiful, because we walked here with you. Have a wonderful new year, and I hope, as I say, it is the best year ever for you and your family, and that it's just a terrific season for you. We love you. I'm available if you want to talk about this flute or something else at 801-822-1415 or brent@woodsounds.com.